Hello and welcome to video lesson 9.2, Factoring by Grouping. So we're still factoring, and today's date goes in the top right hand corner, and our I can statement is that I can factor a polynomial by grouping. So factoring by grouping is for 4 terms. Last time we factored by GCF, which was for any number, but grouping is specifically for 4 terms. So step 1 is to check all 4 terms for GCF first. If there is one, factor it out first. So no matter what type of factoring we do, our first step is always going to be to check for GCF. It's always going to be the very first thing we do in all of our factoring. Step 2 says to check the first 2 terms for a GCF and the second 2 terms for a GCF. If they have a GCF, then we're going to group them. So if they have a GCF, group them. That's where our term grouping comes in. Factoring by grouping. We group the first 2, and we group the second 2. However, if they do not have a GCF, we're going to have to change the order to make 2 groups of 2 terms with a GCF. So if for some reason they do not have a GCF, we're going to have to change their order. That's the commutative property that lets us change the order of our terms. Step 3, factor the GCF out of each group. That means there should be 2. We'll have 2 GCFs. And then lastly, if we have factored correctly, the terms in each parenthesis should be the same, should be identical. So if we have factored correctly, we'll have the parentheses being identical. And lastly, we write our answer with our GCFs in our first parenthesis. And then in a second parenthesis, we have the one that's the same. So in GCF, we only had 1 parenthesis. In grouping, our answer has 2. It'd be 2 binomials. So answer will be 2 binomials. So let's put these steps to work. Let's see an example. Example 1 gives us 4AB plus 8B plus 3A plus 6. So step 1 is to check all 4 terms for GCF. So we always look for the lowest number, so that's 3. We say, can 3 go into 4 evenly? No. 3 is prime, so he can't break apart anymore. So there isn't a GCF among numbers, so we look at the variable. He has an A, but these 2 don't. So we can't take out an A. First 2 have B, but the last 2 don't. So there aren't any coefficients, there aren't any variables to take out. So no GCF of all 4 of them. So step 2 says to group the first 2 terms and the second 2 terms and check for a GCF of them. So I'm going to pull up a blind because the very first thing we need to do is just look in that first parenthesis. Focus on this guy by himself. 4AB plus 8B. Does it have an individual GCF? It does, because our smaller number is 4, and 4 can go into 8 evenly, so I can take out a 4. And they both have B's. So the first one has a GCF of 4B. So then we focus on just our second parenthesis. We check him for a GCF. So we start with 3, and 3 can go into 6 evenly, so I can take out a 3. He has an A, but the 6 doesn't, so the only thing I can take out here is just the GCF of 3. Now once we check the groups for GCF, we factor them out. So this brings in our factoring by GCF, where we divide everybody in the first parenthesis by its GCF of 4B. And we divide everybody in the second parenthesis by its GCF of 3. Now this is two sets of GCF, so I'm going to write my blank for my GCF to go, and then my parentheses, then another blank for the GCF to go, and another parentheses. So GCF, my first parentheses, 4b, so it goes on the outside, and then we divide. 4 divided by 4 is 1. I don't have to show it. A doesn't have anybody to go with, so it drops down, and b divided by b cancels. Now drop down my plus sign. 8 divided by 4 is 2, and b divided by b cancels. Now here's where your signs have to come into play. If he's a positive 3, then I need to drop down plus 3 as my GCF, because plus 3 means he's positive 3. And now we divide our second parenthesis. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. I don't have to show it, but I can drop down my A. Plus 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now, step 3 said if we did it correctly, our parentheses should be the same. 4a plus 2 and 4a plus 2. Oh, sorry, just a plus 2 and a plus 2. Since they are the same, that means I can go ahead and write my answer. So we get 2 parentheses for binomials. Our first GCF goes in our first parenthesis, so 4b. And our second GCF goes in our first parenthesis, so plus 3. Then our second parenthesis, the one that's the same, so a plus 2. And that's our answer. So what we can do now is we can check this. As GCF was the reversal of the distributive property, so we distribute to check it. This is the reversal of foiling. So we FOIL and say 4b times a, put on alphabetical order, so it's 4ab. 4b times 2 is 8b. Then we do our inside. 3 times a is 3a. And 3 times 2 is 6. And we look, is this the same thing as our original problem? Yep, so we check. Now let's see example 2. We have 35x minus 5xy plus 3y minus 21. So first step is to check all 4 terms for GCF. So our smallest number is 3. We say, can 3 go into 5 evenly? No, it can't. So then we check, do they all have the same variables? No, they don't. So where we have 4 terms, that means it's a grouping. So that means I want to group the first 2 terms and group the second 2 terms. And look for GCF in the first parenthesis. So our smallest number is 5. And we say 5 can go into 35 evenly. So GCF is 5, and they both have x's, so I can take out an x. Now GCF is 3, because 3 is our smallest number, and 3 can go between 1 evenly. They don't both have y's, so it can't take out a y. So now everybody in the first parenthesis gets divided by its GCF of 5x. Everybody in the second parenthesis gets divided by 3, and our next step has the GCF on the outside in our parenthesis. GCF on the outside and our parenthesis. So GCF goes on the outside, 5x. Now we divide. 35 divided by 5 is 7. X divided by x cancels. Negative 5 divided by 5 is a negative 1. Don't have to show it. X divided by x cancels and leaves me with y. Now GCF is a positive 3, so plus 3. And 3 divided by 3 gives us 1. We don't have to show it, so we drop down our y. And negative 21 divided by 3 is negative 7. Now we check to make sure our parentheses are the same. So I have 7 minus y and y minus 7. Well, they're almost the same. Their order's wrong. We need y in front on this one, so we need to change their order. But also, this 7's positive and this 7's negative. Oh, sorry, being a little crazy there. And then this y's negative and this y's positive. So where their signs are different, that means up here when I take out my GCF, I need to take out a negative. It doesn't matter if you take it out in the first or the second one. I'm going to take it out in the first one, a negative 5. So then 35 divided by negative 5 is negative 7. And then Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is a positive 1. So now my signs are where they need to be. I have a negative 7 and a negative 7, and a positive y and a positive y. Now let's just rewrite this step to where the parentheses are in the right order. So I'm just going to flip my positive y and my negative 7. So drop down my negative 5x and say y is now in front, so y in our negative 7. And then just drop down this whole part as is. So plus, let's try that again, plus 3 times y minus 7. Now we double check. Our parentheses are the same, y minus 7 and y minus 7. So now we write our answer. We get 2 parentheses big enough for binomials, so 2 binomials. And our GCF goes in the first one, so negative 5x plus 3. And then we drop down our parentheses, that's the same, y minus 7. And that's our answer. Let's see one more example. Example 3 has 2my plus 7x plus 7m plus 2xy. So step 1, check all 4 terms for GCF. Our smallest number is 2, and 2 cannot go into 7 evenly, and they do not have any variables in common. So where it has 4 terms, we group the first 2. We group the second 2. We check the first one for GCF, and we try 2. Can 2 go into 7 evenly? No, it can't. And do they both have m's? No. Do they both have y's? No. They don't both have x's. So they have no GCF in the first parenthesis. So let's check our second one. So our second parenthesis has another 2. So 2, we already said it cannot go into 7 evenly, so no GCF. Then we check them for variables. Do they both have x's? No. Y's, m's? Nope, no variables in common. So our first nor second group had a GCF, and the whole thing doesn't have a GCF. So this is where in our notes we said if it doesn't have a GCF, we have to change the order. We have to use the commutative property to create a group with a GCF. So let's start off with our 2m. Y. So if I have a 2my, is there anybody else up here that you think could find a GCF with 2my? How about our 2xy? They both have 2's, they both have x's, they should have a GCF. Our next one, 7x and 7m. They both have 7's, so we can tell automatically they're going to have a GCF. So now we group the first 2, we group the second 2, and try to find the GCF again. So GCF is the first one, they both have 2's, so I can take out a 2, and 2 can go into 2 evenly. They both have y's, so I can take out a y. Now we find our GCF of our second one. They both have 7's, and 7 can go into 7 evenly, but they don't have any variables in common. Now the whole first parentheses is going to get divided by its GCF of 2y. And then we put our GCF on the outside and we make our parentheses. There we go. So now we divide. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I don't have to show it. M drops down. He has somebody to go with. Y divided by y cancels. Plus 2 divided by 2 is 1. I don't have to show it. I drop down my x and my y's cancel. Now it's positive 7, so plus 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. I don't have to show it, so I drop down my x. Plus 7 divided by 7 is 1. Don't have to show it, so I drop down my m. So once again, we're to the step where we check our parentheses, make sure they're the same. And our first parenthesis has positive m plus x, and our second parenthesis has a positive x plus m. Good thing is this time their signs are the same. Bad news is that they're out of order again. So this doesn't need to be m plus x, it needs to be x plus m. So we'll just change around, so 2y times x plus m. And we'll drop down this whole second part as is, so plus 7 times x plus m. So now we check. Our parentheses are the same. So I can write my answer. 2 binomials, and my first binomial is made up of the GCF, so 2y. Our other GCF is plus 7. And then the parentheses, that's the same, x plus m. That's our answer. And that finishes us up. Thank you.